Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to this council meeting. To those joining us here in the council chambers and to those who will be joining us online. Before we begin, Councillor Welsh, if you would give the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you. We are meeting on the traditional country of the Cammeraygal people of the Eora Nation and pay respect to elders, past and present. We recognize and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to any Cammeraygal people living today. And we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations.
Thank you. Now, councillors, we've had 3 applications to attend tonight's meeting remotely from Councillor Mutton, Councillor Lapouris and Councillor Spenceley. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Burke. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Welcome, Councillors Lapouris and Mutton. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Welch?
Yes, it's 10.8. I'm on the board of the Crow's Nest Community Centre and they're discussing for it.
Councillor Lamb?
Part-time.
Councillor Gibson, could you return this? Thank you, Councillor Lamb,
Yes, I'd like to declare 10.8 as well.
for the same.
Yes, for the same reason.
Thank you. This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on council's website. Those present should refrain from making defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you are giving consent to your image and voice being webcast. Councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during council meetings, and councillors who need to use their phone to text, talk or engage in social media activity must leave the chamber to do so. That takes us to the minutes, confirmation of minutes. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Santa. Any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? That's carried. We've had an application from 3 speakers on 3 of the items. Councillor Berrigy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that we open the public forum for items 8.1, 10.11 and 11.1 and that we invite the speakers to address the council prior to the debate.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Santa. I put the item. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Before we come to those brought forward items, we have 3 mayoral minutes. The first relates to the state heritage listing of the Hayden Orpheum Picture Palace. As many of you will recall, at the very first meeting of this council on the 24th, full meeting of council on the 24th of January 2022, council resolved to seek urgent heritage advice in relation to the heritage significance of the Cremorne Orpheum Cinema and its curtilage, and in particular whether state heritage listing was appropriate to protect this important local heritage item. As many of you would know, it was opened in 1935, and when the Orpheum opened, it was an exciting cinema destination for suburban Sydney in the heyday of cinema. Today, it's a Military Road cultural landmark, a community gathering place, and an exceptional example of Art Deco design. On the 30th of May, the founder of the Cremorne Conservation Group, Ms. Fiona Gracie, together with founding member Chris Holding, had worked tirelessly to organise an event to celebrate and advocate for the state heritage listing for the Orpheum Cinema as part of the National Trust Heritage Festival. And I know that many of the councillors here ventured out with more than 400 people on a very cold and wet night and to attend the cinema to hear about the historical insights about the theatre from Council's Dr. Ian Hoskins and about its place in the Art Deco remnants across Sydney of cinemas. The night was moderated by Fenella Kernebone, a National Trust board member, and one may remember that, of course, the iconic organ was raised and the organist Neil Jensen entertained the room. Then later that year, on the 7th of November, Council resolved to nominate the Hayden Orpheum Picture Palace for inclusion on the State Heritage Register, having received a very thorough assessment of its significance. And since the beginning of the term of this council, we have worked together with our community to have the Orpheum recognised and registered on the State Heritage Register. And after much community consultation and campaigning, the New South Wales State Heritage Register listing of the Hayden Orpheum Picture Palace was approved by the Honourable Penny Sharp, Minister for Climate Change and Minister for Energy and Minister for Heritage on the 31st of May. The heritage listing recognises the theatre's unique place in the state as one of the last surviving examples, and certainly one of the last surviving working examples of an Art Deco suburban cinema. It's still in operation and looks to be going on for time immemorial at this stage. In her direction to list the cinema, this minister cited the theatre's importance in the cultural history of New South Wales, the rich Art Deco stylistic features of the building, its association with renowned theatre architects, entrepreneurs and performers, the social value to the community and its potential to yield further information about the history of 20th century cinema. So it was fitting that just on the eve of the Sydney Film Festival, the Orpheum was finally listed and it could be filled with cinephiles for that rich mix of architecture and film history. Now, I must apologise because I have missed one of our registered speakers who had registered to speak on this item, and that is Fiona Gracie. So I will call her forward to address council now. If you give your name and who you represent.
Good evening. My name is Fiona Gracie and I represent the Cremorne Conservation Group. Thank you very much for allowing me to address you tonight. I have come to personally thank you and on behalf of the Cremorne Conservation Group to thank you as councillors and the council staff for wholeheartedly supporting the nomination of this theatre and for the hard work that the council staff have been putting in the last couple of years. I might say that it actually came about by accident because when my partner and I were looking into the history of the cottages on Parraween Street, I came across the fact that the Orpheum Theatre was not on the State Heritage Register. And everybody I spoke to, literally everyone I spoke to said, no, you're wrong. And I said, no, it's definitely not on the register. And even the Orpheum management told me that it was listed. And I said, no, it's not. In fact, they told me it had the World Heritage listing, which I said, no, it doesn't have that either.
Press your microphone on just speak.
Is that better? Okay. So yes, that it was news to everyone that it didn't have a listing. So we started the campaign, but not before I'd spoken with Mayor Baker about the fact that it didn't have a listing. And I have to say that there's been continued support from you, Mayor, throughout the whole campaign, not just with the community, but with your personal representations back to the minister to ensure that this listing gets through. So we started to engage with the community directly with that extravaganza that we put on the 30th of May back in 2022. And I have to say it was wholeheartedly supported. And I found out later that the heritage consultants that had been commissioned by this council actually attended that evening, and they got a lot of information from the very facts that were presented by Dr. Ian Hoskins and Dr. Peter Sheridan. So my thanks go out to them as well. So it has been a long campaign, but it has been, every step has been successful. And I don't think I'd be sitting here tonight thanking you if it wasn't for you and the staff here at the council. So thank you. I might just add one additional positive note, and that is that when the listing was announced, I was contacted directly by the National Trust, who said that they were absolutely thrilled because getting a state listing is not easy. And they said they would love me to actually enter this campaign into the National Trust Heritage Awards for 2025, which I'm going to be doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? No, thank you for your participation and your hard work. So I therefore recommend that we write to the Minister, thanking her and the staff at Heritage New South Wales for their advocacy and action. That we write also to Fiona Gracie and particularly the Cremorne Conservation Group, acknowledging the important role they played in galvanising community interest and support for the state heritage listing. And that we acknowledge and thank Council, Heritage and Strategic Planning staff for their contribution to the listing. Councillor Gibson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. While I totally agree with the sentiments expressed in this mayoral minute, I certainly won't be voting for it. Mayoral minutes should come up in a timely manner. I received this after lunch today, and nothing in this says that it's urgent. As you well know, Mayor, we have meetings every 2 weeks now. This could have been written and presented at the next meeting. I think when this council has a commitment to transparent and open government, the mayor should be following the rules, which are that mayoral minutes should be put forward with the rest of the agenda. There's nothing in this that couldn't wait till next meeting, Mayor. So I won't be voting for it because I think it's poor process.
Thank you, Councillor Welch.
Thank you, Mayor, for this wonderful mayoral minute. I well remember the first council meeting of this term and being surprised that the Hayden Orpheum Picture Palace didn't already have a state heritage listing. I would like to thank Fiona Gracie, Chris Holding, and the Cremorne Conservation Group for their community activism, which helped make this listing a reality. I also want to thank the Council Heritage and Strategic Planning staff for their contribution in making this all happen. Our Heritage and Strategic Planning staff are deeply committed to the responsible stewardship of our communities, past, present, and future. Let's continue to cherish, preserve, and celebrate our beautiful heritage. And I'm looking forward to the Heritage Awards 2025 win. I support the mayoral minute.
Thank you, Councillor Welch. Are there any other speakers? Thank you, Councillor Mutton.
Mayor, whilst I support the motion, I do echo Councillor Gibson's view that we are consistently seeing mayor minutes introduced at the very last minute. And realistically, these matters should have been included in the council papers. They don't have the level of urgency to warrant them being brought before the council in this way. So I find this process objectionable, but that said, I do support the substance of this minute.
Well, I'll refer you all to the Code of Meeting Practice and the requirements about mayoral minutes, which you're grossly misstating. But in any event, I put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. The minute is carried. That takes us to the second, which is relating to diverse and affordable housing. This mayoral minute seeks your support for us to pursue a memorandum of understanding with Homes New South Wales, formerly known as the Land and Housing Corporation. On the 14th of November 2022, we considered ways to address the housing crisis and particularly the gap in affordable rental housing in our local government area. And through that, this council resolved that we would urgently prioritise seeking funding partners, including state and federal governments, to deliver the Parraween Street Affordable Housing Early Child Health Centre public park project, and that we would take all steps necessary to ensure the project could proceed as soon as possible. Probably more importantly, we undertook to undertake a review of council land holdings and identify whether there is land that has the potential for affordable housing provision in partnership with a community housing provider. Since that time, the rental housing crisis, the housing and the rental crisis has continued unabated. And a number of regional and metropolitan councils over recent years have sought to explore opportunities for affordable housing in partnership with Homes New South Wales by way of a memorandum of understanding to formalise a model to work together to deliver improved outcomes, particularly in relation to the provision of social and affordable housing. For example, in 2021, the City of Newcastle signed an MOU with the Land and Housing Corporation to establish a collaborative approach to work together on housing issues and specifically to expedite the delivery of new, more suitable social and affordable housing, including the exploration of their Make a Room project in Newcastle, while supporting urban renewal in their local government area by renewing older social housing. Homes New South Wales owns much of the social and affordable housing in the North Sydney local government area, whether it's Greenway to smaller holdings that are scattered throughout Cremorne, Crow's Nest, Waverton, Wollstonecraft, Camaray and beyond. Much of this housing stock requires renewal. Homes New South Wales has been tasked by the Minister for Housing with turbocharging the construction, maintenance and repair of social and affordable homes across the state. So on 11th of December last year, when we were considering the planning proposal for 52 McLaren Street, North Sydney, we resolved to put strongly to the state government that on a site that related to public land, that there should be a minimum of 30%, but ideally 100% affordable housing on that site. So this council is taking every opportunity to identify and advocate for new affordable housing on state government owned land, and where possible, delivering upgraded and new affordable housing on council owned sites. We know that we're underway right as we speak as the upgrade of such a site on Miller Street at Camaray. Council's affordable housing portfolio, which was established over many decades, is currently at 131 units and it's managed by community housing providers. Without a much more creative approach and partnerships with other levels of government, council and I would say local government alone cannot significantly address the crisis, and it's vital therefore that we seek to explore all options to ameliorate the crisis and to take advantage of significant Commonwealth and state funding for new affordable housing. I therefore recommend that council seek to develop an MOU with Homes New South Wales to expedite the delivery of new and refurbished social and affordable housing within the North Sydney LGA, and that a report on funding options for the Parraween Street Park Community Centre affordable housing project be provided to council. Thank you. Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I propose an amendment, point 3, that council urgently seek from the New South Wales State Government its response to council's request of 11 December 2023 for the government to amend the VPA offer on the metro site at 52 McLaren Street, North Sydney, to provide affordable housing at a minimum of 30% and ideally 100%, and appropriate community spaces in perpetuity as part of the gateway determination.
I'm more than happy to take that on. Yeah. Do you wish to speak to that?
I just think it rounds off what we want to do, and given I think later on tonight we'll be discussing that project in more detail. It ensures something which has a great deal of importance for the whole question of affordable housing in our LGA is included in this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Yes, my sentiments are the same as for Mayoral Minute number 1, Mayor. There is nothing about this Mayoral Minute that is urgent. We have a meeting every 2 weeks. This Mayoral Minute should have gone out with council papers for the next meeting. When we present Mayoral Minutes with virtually no notice, it prevents councillors having the time to do some research and homework on the matter. It prevents members of our community being able to turn up and speak on the items. This is about process, and as the leader of the council, the mayor should be observing best practice in every council process. And I think the constant use of Mayoral Minutes without notice is, well, in my mind, it's bordering on unprofessional behaviour. So while I agree with the sentiments, I won't be voting for this because of the court process.
Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. I would just like to briefly speak in support of this motion. Sydney has now officially become the most expensive English-speaking city in the world to rent into or simply live in. And there's ways like this where local government does small things like this that are actually going to help people, because it needs to begin somewhere. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I was speak in support of the mayoral minute, and I would just like to say that I actually do think this is a matter of urgency. So urgent that I even if you did adopt the incorrect assumption on mayoral minutes made by councillor Gibson and by councillor Mutton, because I'm just going to read from the clause.
Point of order, point of order.
I'll take the point of order. I'm going to rule against your point of order because
you haven't heard what
I know what it'll be. You'll say that it's
You haven't heard
untrue.
what it is.
Okay, put it.
Councillor Berrigan is, well, for a start, you didn't even listen to my
I'm
point of
listening to
order.
you now.
Well, that was
so-
very bad process.
Again,
Mayor.
thank you,
Again-
councillor Gibson. If
again,
you would get,
poor
a
process.
point of order is to be made with reference to a part of the code of meeting practice. Have you got a section that you are referring to?
Yes, if
What
someone
is that?
passes me a copy of that
No?
code, it's.
Well, then
well, I-
explain your
well,
code,
no, the
explain
code-
your point of order.
Mayoral minutes are not to be put forward without notice unless the matter is urgent.
That is
No,
not true, and I refer
that-
to
that
clause
is true.
9.6 of the
No.
code of meeting practice. Thank
Yeah,
you. I
now-
ruled on your point of
Okay,
order,
and I
and
will
you will
just say,
take your seat
I will
again.
just say, Mayor,
Councillor Berrigan, you
the
have the
housing
floor.
crisis is hardly just happened this week.
Councillor
It's a pretty
Gibson, Councillor
long-standing
Gibson,
crisis.
you've had your say. Turn off your microphone. Councillor Berrigan, resume, please.
Thank you, Mayor. 9.6 does say indeed that the Mayor, as chairperson of the meeting, may put to the meeting without notice any matter or topic that is within the jurisdiction of the council. So I think we're pretty much there, and it's great to have mayoral minutes used so responsibly in this term of council and about issues that are of absolute importance to our community and to the greater Sydney community more generally. And I'd like to thank Councillor Santa for reiterating that we chase up the state government in relation to McLaren Street, because that's an ideal opportunity, which is completely within the state government's remit to immediately deliver some affordable housing. And Parraween Street is another one waiting just for funding. So if the state government is prepared to put money where its mouth is, I look forward to a very positive response.
Thank you. Councillor Welch.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 weeks ago, I attended the New South Wales Labour for Ending Homelessness meeting at Parliament House. It's a group in which I'm a member, and they passionately advocate for public housing and protecting renters' rights. Now, the New South Wales state budget, I felt had some very positive news in the housing respect. They've said that 6,200 new homes will be added to the social housing package. 2,200 homes in disrepair will be knocked down and rebuilt. $1 billion will be used to improve maintenance and upgrade 33,500 social housing homes. I'm hoping that we can get some of this. The current housing crisis demands more from us. As the mayor states, the scale of the challenge is such that without a more creative approach and robust partnerships with other levels of government, our efforts alone will not be sufficient to make a significant impact. It is imperative that we explore all possible options to alleviate this crisis. We must actively seek out and leverage significant Commonwealth and state funding opportunities dedicated to new affordable housing projects. And by doing so, we can expand our reach and provide more comprehensive solutions to our community's housing needs. Our goal is clear: to ensure that everyone in our community has access to safe, affordable housing. Achieving this goal requires collaboration, innovation, and a willingness to think beyond traditional approaches. It is only through such concerted efforts that we can hope to meet the growing demand for affordable housing and improve the lives of those we serve. I absolutely support this mayoral minute.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I put the item. All those in favour? Those against? And that's carried. That brings us to the last of these mayoral minutes, and this one is reporting back to you on something that occurred between council meetings. And that is the transport oriented development inquiry by the upper house of the state parliament. As you all know, on the 15th of December last year, the state government announced the establishment of Transport Oriented Development Program, known as the TOD, as part of a suite of planning reforms to address the housing crisis. As we all know, there are two tiers of the TOD streams. The first is tier 1, and it relates to what they're calling 8 accelerated TOD precincts to create infrastructure and capacity for 47,800 new homes over 15 years on land within 1,200 metres of 8 rail and metro stations. And for us, Crow's Nest has been identified as one of those tier 1 TOD program sites. Tier 2 relates to more than 33 stations, and it's the one that's grabbed most of the press coverage over the recent months, and it does not apply in our local government area. The Crow's Nest, this accelerated TOD precincts has a very ambitious timeframe. It's to be state-led master planning for additional housing, including 15% affordable housing within the precinct in perpetuity. The state government announced that there would be $520 million allocated for infrastructure improvements in those 8 accelerated TOD precincts, so including Crow's Nest, and that money would go towards critical road upgrades, active transport links, and provision of parks and walkways for those precincts. On the 23rd of February, the upper house announced an inquiry and published the terms of reference into the development of the Transport Oriented Development Program. And on the 7th of June, I was invited and I attended that inquiry and gave evidence on behalf of council and our community. In summary, what I put to the inquiry was the fact is that the limited capacity of utilities such as wastewater in the St Leonard's growth area are reflected in the densities that were adopted under the existing St Leonard's Crow's Nest 2036 plan. The TOD program has not adequately addressed delivery of capacity upgrades in the precinct to serve even more density. The minister announced the $520 million for the 8 accelerated TOD precincts for the provision of infrastructure to accompany additional density. But there's no detail as to how that amount will be divided and the differences in the cost of delivery between the 8 precincts. And by that, I later went on to talk about, but it's definitely true, that the cost of acquisition of land for public open space in Crow's Nest is considerably higher than in some of those other 8 precincts. And there are equities around how that money will be distributed. The proposed infrastructure funding won't touch the sides of the need or deliver for the requisite open space and community infrastructure that's needed for the additional density in those TOD precincts. We in North Sydney already, but particularly in Crow's Nest, have an infrastructure deficit. That deficit is intensified for the Plan 2036 population, and this TOD program will add to that again without any plan or certainty about the delivery of the essential open space, school places, recreational facilities and hospital beds. Adequate, realistic funding and delivery of infrastructure and capacity upgrades to accompany any new development is required now, before the people arrive. History and experience with the special infrastructure contribution under that 2036 plan shows that if it's not provided up front, it may never eventuate. Planning ultimately isn't about theoretical numbers on paper, it's about people and shaping where and how we live. And the failure to fund and deliver for open space, school places, hospital beds, road upgrades will have direct and devastating negative impacts on the existing and future residents of these precincts. So in short, it was saying to the state government, we need to have the funding and adequate funding for that additional open space and requisite community facilities now, and we need to be certain that it will be there so that those works can be delivered. And so I therefore recommend that you note the attached evidence to the Upper House inquiry into the impacts of the TOD, that council call on the state government to provide a special infrastructure contribution for the Crow's Nest Accelerated TOD precinct to fund and deliver essential community infrastructure for the existing planned and additional planned population, including open space, road upgrades, community facilities, etc. And that a copy of this resolution and minute be provided to the Upper House inquiry. Councillor Gibson.
Yes, Mayor, this is unusual, but I'm going to say the same thing for the third time tonight. I've had a very busy day. I think a lot of the councillors sitting around this room and those at home who have busy jobs might not have got the opportunity to even read these till the meeting tonight. There is nothing about this that is urgent. And when things are done quickly and at the last minute, we have mistakes. So the first line here, Mayor, on the 15th of December 2024, as far as I know, we haven't even got to the 15th of December 2024, have we? So does that mean 2023?
Of course it does.
Okay, well, 2023. So last year, this was announced and now we're bringing this forward without any notice, as though it's some sort of urgent process. Mayor, as the leader of the council, you should be observing good process more than anyone else. And again, this has prevented me doing any research or reading on this. It has prevented members of the community knowing about it and registering to speak. But look, I'm going to go a bit further. I am going to suggest here, Mayor, that cynical members of the North Sydney community might view these 3 mayoral minutes as electioneering for the September council election.
Okay, I'm going to call you to order again, imputing improper motives, which is what you're constantly doing. Thank you. Are there any other speakers on the item? Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to just propose a small amendment to, I think it's number 3, to add in water supply and sewerage infrastructure.
Oh,
2, sorry, 2.
yes, I'm happy to take that on. Plus, and maybe we say and upgrades
Given what Sydney Water,
to essential services.
yes, given what Sydney Water has said about the situation as far as they're concerned.
With that addition, I put the item. All those in favour? Those against? And that's carried. That brings us to the rest of the brought forward items. The next item is item 10.11, supporting local businesses during council infrastructure works. There is a single registered speaker, Mr. Paul Haycroft. If you would come forward, please. No. Is there,
I'll move the recommendation.
moved by councillor Berricky.
I was just
Is there a seconder? Councillor Santa. Councillor Gibson.
Yes. Now, this came about as a notice of motion that I put forward quite a while ago. And I'd have to say, I'm reading the report, but everything that I see on the ground tells me that we have a long way to go when it comes to supporting our local businesses. I was down at Kirribilli today and I'd have to say the works there that are having huge impact on those 2 businesses there, and simple things like keeping one of the pathways open from each end would have helped. And when that was pointed out, the workers did change the arrangement because nobody was actually walking past the front door of Morgan's. And a restaurant that's usually full at lunchtime had, well, I turned up and so there were 3 people there, which was really distressing because they're still paying their staff wages, they're still paying their rents, their outdoor dining permits, etc., etc. I also, as you know, I've just been away for 5 weeks, but I had an urgent phone call and then an email while I was away about the same council project, and it was from a lady that I know that actually lives up above Morgan's, because there's several residences there. Now, the council seemed to be unaware that there were any residents living above the businesses, and hadn't taken into account that those people would actually need to access their homes after hours. So I had urgent calls and emails saying, well, I actually couldn't get in my front door because the pathways were boarded up and there was wet cement. So look, I think I know we're on a mission to do better, but there have been problems. And I think we absolutely owe it to our small businesses to give them all the support that they can have. We all know that with this cost of living crisis, with energy prices being so high, with people paying extra on their mortgages, locals aren't going out for dinners as much as they used to. And it is really tough for our small businesses, particularly those running food and beverage facilities. It's tough. Everyone's having a hard time. And when it comes to council doing these works, we must be doing them in the most efficient manner that we can. And I firmly believe that we should be compensating the small businesses for loss of trade, not giving them a cash payout, but perhaps waiving their outdoor dining fees for a short while. I'm glad to see the council is now paying attention to this really critical matter. So we all know without our small businesses, we do not have villages, and without villages, we do not have our community members interacting with each other.
Thank you, councillor Gibson. Are there any other speakers? I put the item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. That takes us back to the rest of the agenda. Oh, sorry. It doesn't. We have one more brought forward item. Item 11.1, the notice of motion recognising Freddie Lane. One person has registered to speak, Carolyn Hinchcliffe. If you would come forward. You're online, so if you would please address the council meeting. Ms. Hinchcliffe, the floor is yours. You need to unmute yourself. Oh, we've lost her. Ms. Hinchcliffe, you've turned your camera off. If you could turn it on again. And unmute so that we can hear you. Is she still?
Still online.
Ms. Hinchcliffe, we can't see you or hear you. So if you could please activate your camera. If we can't, unfortunately, Ms. Hinchcliffe, because we can't see or hear you, we're going to have to proceed with the item. We're sorry that we haven't been able to hear from you. Councillor Berricky,
Thank
is your
you, Mayor.
motion.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Lamb?
Thank you. And I'll just briefly speak to it. I was hoping that Ms Hinchcliffe could address the council. I was approached by Ms Hinchcliffe, who's the granddaughter of Freddie Lane, asking how council can recognise Freddie's contribution to swimming and to the building of McCallum Pool. And I've detailed here Freddie's remarkable history, and I must say it was a bit of news to me as well, especially what he won his first Olympic gold medal in, which sounds like a swimming version of steeplechase. But thank God we don't have that anymore. But I think one of the reasons I know that Ms Hinchcliffe is keen for this to be tabled now is that Freddie won his first medal in Paris, and this year we're back in Paris, and so it's a wonderful way to try and recognise his legacy. So what I've asked in the motion for is that we call for a report outlining an appropriate way to recognise our former resident, Freddie Lane, and that we consult Dr Hoskins in relation to it, along with, I would assume, the Director of Open Space, acting CEO, to come back to the council with a way that we could recognise his achievements.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. That does now take us back to the rest of the agenda. 9.1, Environment Reference Group Minutes. Is there a mover for the item? Moved by Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Berricky. Any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? And that's carried. Item 9.2, Sustainable Transport Reference Group Minutes. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Berricky, seconded by Councillor Welch. Is there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour?
I'm
That's
voting against that one, Mayor.
that's carried. Ms Hinchcliffe, if I may just advise you, because we were unable to hear you or see you at that point, we have moved on, but the motion was supported unanimously. Thank you for your participation. 9.3, Disability Inclusion Committee Minutes, moved by Councillor Berricky, seconded by Councillor Santa. Is there any discussion? Put the item. That's carried unanimously. Item 10.1, Matters Outstanding to 27 May. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Any discussion? Put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. 10.2, 2024 Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference Delegates and Motions. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Santa. Is there any discussion? Put the item. All those in favour? Those against? And that's carried. 10.3, Operational Plan and Budget 2024 to 25 Post-Exhibition Report. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Berricky, seconded by Councillor Welch. Any discussion? Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, at the risk of being accused of pedantry, and justifiably so, I'd like to draw attention to the typo under periodic progress reporting. I don't think the general manager or the CEO would want to endure this, would much rather ensure it.
I'm sure that correction can be made.
I'd also like to foreshadow the need to examine possible revenues from the encouragement of smaller business, small and medium business in the North Sydney Council area. I'm about to, at a forthcoming meeting, deliver a report on a tourism conference that I attended recently in Wagga, and also other sources of revenue. So I would like to endorse the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Draft Fees and Charges Schedule 24-25. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Berricky, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Any discussion? Put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. 10.5, expenses and facilities for the mayor and councillors, policy for public exhibition. Is there a mover?
Yeah.
Moved by councillor Berrigan, seconded by councillor Welsh. Councillor Berrigan, do you wish to speak to the item?
No, Mayor, I'll reserve my right of reply.
Councillor Gibson.
Yes, Mayor, I had we might have all had an email from Davey McDonald today about this. Who thought some of these amounts were excessive, and he actually suggested that this report be signed off by the new council, not by this council. So look at it, and can I ask the officers, would there be any harm in delaying this till after the council elections?
Through you, councillor Baker, my understanding is this has to be resolved before the council elections, but I can refer to the Director of Corporate Services.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have to do it in a set time period of the election. It can be before or afterwards by about 2 months.
Well, I'm going to move an amendment that this be deferred to not the first meeting of the new council, to the second meeting of the new council. I think it should be up to the new council to be setting expenses and facilities. Not the outgoing councillors shouldn't be doing this.
Just as a clarification, would two months after the election, the second or third meeting, would that be within the time frame that you're?
Say the second meeting.
It would be within the time frame. I will state that in developing this proposed policy, we did look at other councils, and this is in line with other councils in terms of what their expenses are.
It's for exhibitions.
Yeah, but we shouldn't be putting it out. I don't think we should be putting it out onto exhibition till the new council. So I will move an amendment that this be referred to the second meeting of the new council.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Lapouris. Is there any discussion? Councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll speak against the amendment and for the motion. We're putting it out on public exhibition. I think if there's a concern, I can't see that any concerns are going to be any different from the public perspective of putting it out on exhibition now. And we haven't consulted on it for quite a while, and we need to adopt on it at the commencement of a new term. So I would be voting against the amendment and for the recommendation, which is made by our council staff. And as we have heard, it's in line with other councillors.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Gibson, do you wish to exercise your right?
Yeah, just quickly, look, we should be, when it comes to things like this, particularly when it comes to what we intend to pay ourselves, I think this should be done in the new council. I feel very uncomfortable with this. And it doesn't matter what other councils are doing. Let's do better. Let's do better, councillors. It doesn't hurt to put this off till I don't think it's fair to do this at the first meeting of the new council, but the second meeting of the new council, we could do this, and then the new councillors can have their say on what they think. They might want to put out something totally different to this, and it sort of gives, by doing this now, it gives the presumption that everyone around this table thinks they're going to be re-elected and that they're voting for. Well, I'm just saying it gives the impression.
It doesn't.
In my mind, it gives the impression. I'm allowed to have an opinion, Mayor. That's how I think residents could see this. So I think this is something for the new council, and it doesn't hurt.
Madam Mayor, I just have a question for Councillor Gibson. Yes. Councillor Gibson, you said previously that you didn't have time to read the mayoral minutes, which came in at 11:37 this morning. Yet Mr Davies' submission came in at 4:40 this afternoon. You've had time to read that.
Yes, I
Yeah.
said, what sort of
Okay, I was just
question is,
wondering.
what sort of
Thank you.
question is that? I did have time to read that because he also.
Thank you, asked and
indicated-
answered.
What a ridiculous
Thank you.
question, councillor.
Are there any others? Are there any other?
Mayor,
It was asked and
Mayor,
answered.
you should actually prevent your assistant
Again,
chair
no,
from
again,
asking
here you go with
questions
the
like
personal
this.
attacks and
Well-
improper motives.
well-
And this is
well,
against the
really,
code of
really,
meeting practice. Again,
Really, I didn't
take
read
your
the mayoral
seat.
minutes until I was ready to come in.
Councillor
But I
Gibson,
was
Councillor
notified.
Gibson,
That's just a
take your
silly
seat.
inflammatory thing
Councillor
to
Gibson
say.
flagrantly in
No,
violation
no,
of the
no.
code
No,
again. Because
Councillor Berry
clause-
is
no,
in violation
No,
of the
you
law.
are, because
She
the
is
moment that
being-
the chair
she is
speaks,
being
councillors are to
inflammatory.
take their seat and remain
Councillor
silent.
Bergy is being
11.16
deliberately
again.
inflammatory. You can
9.6.
quote all the numbers that you want, Mayor.
Yes,
They
I
just go
can,
straight over my
Because
head.
it's an
Councillor
absolute
Bergy is
travesty that
being-
you refuse to come to
Councillor
order when
Bergy
you're called to
is
do so.
being inflammatory.
Thank you. Are there any
should
others,
have
are there any other speakers on the item? I'm going to put the amendment, which is to defer this to the next council. All those in favour? Those against? That is lost. If we revert to the original motion, councillor Beregi and Lamb's motion, all those in favour? Those against? That is carried. That brings us
Sorry,
to.
Mayor. I just wanted to speak on the amendment. I wanted to propose
um,
just some small changes, if I may. Mayor.
We'll have to move to commit. So if you have a motion to recommit the item, because we've voted and it's over, so move to recommit. Is there a seconder for the recommittal? Councillor Lapouris, put recommittal, all those in favour? I'll need everyone's hands up, so those online, if you could keep your hands up. I'm prepared to recommit. Councillor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's carried. Okay, the emotion is now that we've recommitted is councillor Beregi. We moved the recommendation.
I'm happy to hear what councillor Spencer had to say.
And councillor Lamb, Welsh seconded it. Councillor Spencer, you seek an amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Apologies, I think I'm on a little bit of a delay. It was just wanted to seek an amendment where if councillor was provided a smartphone and laptop in the previous term and it is still functional, that they continue to use those devices and that we remove postage stamps from the.
I'm glad you picked that up. Councillor Beregi, prepared to take that on?
I just was going to seek clarification. It comes back for a further report to council. Could we make that change after it's gone out on exhibition? Or would you like to make the change now? It's coming back for approval anyway.
No, I understand that. I think it's just good to show the
Upfront.
the residents that we are considering to reuse technology, both from a cost perspective, but also just from a waste perspective. So I'd love it to be on exhibition, that we're not.
So if councillor Spencer, are you happy to take the recommendation with an amendment to number 1?
Yes.
Where we remove the provision of postage stamps and we continue with if you are provided with a smartphone or a device and are re-elected, then you continue with that facility.
If it's in good working.
If it's in good working order.
If it's still
Is
correct.
Yep. Councillor Welsh, you happy to take that on?
That's correct.
Okay.
We're happy to take that on.
I'll put the item then with that change.
Thank you very much.
All those in favour? Those against?
Oh, no, I'm against.
And that's carried. Thank you, councillor Spenceley. Investment loans and borrowing report, item 10.7. Is there a mover? Moved by councillor Beregi, seconded by.
What about 10.6?
Oh, sorry, I had 10.6. My apologies. 10.6. Determination of the local government remuneration tribunal. Moved by councillor Beregi. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lamb,
And I have an amendment, thank you, Mayor. So number 1 is the same. Point 2 should read that council fix the annual fee, mayoral fee, that doesn't, the annual, that's, so strike out the fee after annual, because that doesn't even make sense. The council fix the annual mayoral fee to $76,190, and then in brackets, in accordance with the Metropolitan Meeting Council's allowable fee determined by the local government, and so that then goes in brackets, and then for that, and then continue the sentence, for a mayor fulfilling the mayoral duty, the mayoral role on a full-time basis. And
I'm sorry, I have to rule that out as unlawful.
Why?
We're dealing with the determination of the Remuneration Tribunal.
yeah,
It's not-
but we can set, Mayor, we can make recommendations, and please let me finish my point.
Okay.
We can make recommendations. And $32,660 for a mayor fulfilling the role part-time. Mayor, as you very well know, and we just look on the,
Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Verity. Councillor, is there a seconder? Councillor Lapouris, are you seconding the motion? Thank you.
if we look on,
Speak to it.
just look on the second page, councillors, we have the right to determine a minimum salary or a minimum allowance for councillors and the mayor, and a maximum. Just look at the tribunal determination. For the first 10 years I was on council, we actually took the minimum salary for a councillor, and I believe the mayor also took a minimum. We did that for about 10 years from memory. And there is this big variation, and it is up to council to determine what the mayor and councillors are being paid. I'm sorry, but when I'm out in the community, our councillors, when they hear about, well, for a start, it's not. Oh, actually, I want to add a third point onto that amendment, if the seconder will take it on. Sorry, I've had a busy day and I'm rushing to do this. So point 3 would be that council acknowledge that the mayoral that the other benefits received by the mayor, which include superannuation, mayoral car, phone, and executive assistant, and that the mayor also receives the councillor's salary. And I hope my seconder will take that on.
Councillor Lapouris, you take that on, no doubt. Thank you.
No, you're being rude.
No,
You're being
Councillor
rude,
Gibson,
really.
you
It should be,
you have
you
the
should be more
floor.
professional. Okay, so what people don't necessarily realise, because it's never made clear that the mayor gets a mayoral salary and a councillor's salary. Now, if we add the two together, $76,190 and $28,690, it comes to $104,000.88. Now, that's a pretty good, without the benefits, and I believe could someone just inform me what's the super rate now? Is it 10%? I think it's 10%. Pretty generous superannuation, which we've never received in the past. A car's, worth, a car's a big benefit these days, EA, phone, office equipment, whatever. So we would have to acknowledge that a salary over 100,000 a year is a substantial salary. I don't think teachers earn that. I don't know that nurses earn that. There are a lot of workers out there that work really hard on a full-time basis and do not earn over $100,000 a year. We've always had, this council has asked during the times there was a popularly elected mayor, has always had a mayor doing the job full-time. It was always seen as a full-time job.
That is not true, and so you may have seen it as that. That is not true. It is not
true.
It is not. It is incorrect.
Oh, well, who didn't do their job
You have
full-time?
the floor.
Well, no, you're
When I-
interrupting.
No, I'm not. I'm calling you to
Well,
order.
you're interrupting.
Again.
Well, I will say it again, since we had a popularly elected mayor, those mayors did the job full-time.
Again, untrue.
Oh, thank you, Mayor.
Well, I'm calling you,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
asking
this
you
is
under the
not-
code of meeting practice to stick to the facts.
Well, tell me who didn't do the job full-time.
Well, your predecessor held two other roles at the same time.
But she did the.
She was the
they
local
were-
government,
they-
New South Wales,
they were
and the Australian
associated-
local
They
government.
were associated with the
Association.
mayoral job, and she did do her job
Oh,
full-time.
you-
She was in her,
Thank
she
you,
was in her
councillor.
office every day. So don't talk about the former mayor. She was in her office every day. People, our residents get really surprised when they learn that our mayor, who earns over $100,000 a year, has another job which is out of the municipality, which has nothing to do with our local government area, unlike the previous mayor. So our residents are, they're quite frankly, they're gobsmacked when they know that our mayor does not attend to the mayoral duties full-time. So I think we should be acknowledging that there should be a different fee structure depending on whether the mayor does the job full-time or part-time. I mean, that is just reasonable.
You would finish now, you're at 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll certainly finish, Mayor. So anyone that has an eye on council budgets, and our ratepayers pay, let's not forget, our ratepayers pay our salaries, councillors, all paid for by the ratepayers. Whether our residents get good value for money, paying a mayor over $100,000 a year when they do not come into the office every day. I think we have.
Thank you. You have been well over your 5 minutes.
I'll
Please
just
take your
finish,
seat.
I'll just finish my sentence, Mayor. I'll be just one word. So if we care about public perception and we care about how our ratepayers' money is spent, you should support my amendment to this motion. Let's get real, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor
$100,000
Gibson.
salary
You're
is a
full
very
minute and a
large
half
salary.
over. Thank you. I'm going to speak to this. First of all, this determination relates for the next 12 months, and it relates to whoever holds that role, either now or in the future after the September elections. Secondly, this is again part of a long-standing history of the same personal attack that my predecessor has cast upon me for the entirety of this term, and it is entirely careless with the facts. The reality is it's quality, not quantity, and I'm proud not only of my commitment to the role, but my work rate. The fact is that the vast majority of mayors in New South Wales have roles outside of council. Just a few examples. Lane Cove Mayor Scott Benison, Chartered Accountant and Financial Planner. Waverley Mayor Paula Marcellos. She's the Managing Director of a communications agency that specialises in hard-to-reach audiences. Woollahra Mayor Richard Shields, Head of Government Relations for Westpac and State President of the Liberal Party. Nor is this council either. We've moved on. Mayor of Georges River Council, Sam Elmere, pharmacist. The former Mayor of Blacktown, Managing Director of a major construction industry labour hire firm. I think it may Carmelo Pesci, Sutherlandshire Mayor, businessman with interest in a chain of cafes and properties. The Mayor of the Blue Mountains City Council, Mark Greenhill, who's an industrial relations expert in the corporate sector, he might well have put it best in a recent article. He said, a typical day would be that I would get up very early, go into my corporate day job in the city, come back, and then attend several meetings of an evening and walk in the door at 10 or 10:30 at night, only to get up at 5:30 the next day and do it all again. Basically, I work nights and weekends fulfilling my mayoral duties, but I'm also on call. So if anything comes up during the day, our CEO is able to get to me quickly and we make decisions together over the phone. Over the phone and over email and in person is how I conduct the role, as most modern mayors do. As I said, the predecessor before Councillor Gibson had two huge jobs: President of Local Government New South Wales, which took her to councils across the state, and President of the Australian Local Government Association, which took her to councils around the country. So to suggest, all I would say is that I would suggest that you focus on the outcomes that are being delivered for our community instead of continually sniping and personal attacks. Because what I hear in our community is that finally the chaos is over and people are pleased to have someone not only focused but capable of undertaking the role. So for all those reasons, I will be voting against the amendment and for the motion. Are there any other speakers?
I will have my right of
Well,
reply.
no, I'm putting the amendment. I'm putting the amendment. All those in favour? Those against? That is lost. The amendment becomes, the motion becomes, we return to the original motion. I put the motion. All those in
I
favour?
want to speak to the motion.
And those against?
I'm
That is
I'm
carried.
speaking to the
And
motion,
we
Mayor.
have moved on. from
Mayor,
that.
Mayor,
No,
you
we've
cannot,
moved on.
you cannot
Can,
refuse.
and I have.
You cannot
10.7
refuse someone speaking.
Investment
to
and
a
loan
motion.
borrowings
Mayor,
report.
I will
moved
move,
by
I will ask
councillor
the general
Berry,
manager,
seconded by
the acting general
councillor
manager a
Councillor
question.
Lamb. Any
Is it within
discussion?
the power of
Councillor
the
Gibson,
mayor?
I am once again, it is in the power of the mayor to rule on anything at a meeting.
You
And whether
just-
I'm right, and you
just
should know
stop-
that better than
You
anyone else.
just stop
I'm
me
calling
speaking
you.
to a motion.
No, I'm calling you to
Because
order.
you're scared of what I'm going to say,
No, I'm
Mayor.
not.
I'm
Sit,
calling,
Councillor
I'm calling
Gibson,
you
sit down.
out. I'm calling
Sit
you
down.
out. You are
Councillor Gibson,
refusing to let me speak.
Again, I'm calling
That
you to
is
order.
atrocious,
I'm
Mayor.
calling you to
Atrocious.
order.
And people know this.
Item 10.7 has been moved and seconded. Are there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? And those against? That is carried. Community, item 10.8, two of the councillors have identified, disclosed an interest. Community grants and subsidies. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Moved by councillor Beregi, seconded by councillor Santa. Is there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? Those against? Is that against online?
I didn't put my hand up for anything.
Okay, okay, thank you. That's against. Councillor Spenceley and councillor Mutton, did you vote for the item? Thank you, Spenceley.
I voted for the item.
Thank you, councillor Spenceley. Councillor Mutton?
No, I'm fine.
So you vote, so you abstain or you vote against?
I'm voting for.
For, thank you. That's carried. We'll ask the councillors to return to the chamber. Draft amendment item 10.9 to the North Sydney DCP in relation to 52 McLaren Street. Moved by councillor Beregi, seconded by councillor Santa. Is there any discussion? Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd support the motion. And referring to proposed, the amendment passed for 8.02 previously tonight, including the 30 to 100% affordable housing provision of community spaces. I'd support the option 2 as proposed, as recommended in the draft report. And I would like to see it specify the detail and specify in detail the extra components of council's proposed revisions as spelled out in the letter to the minister. I support this. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. 10.10, the North Sydney Local Planning Panel reformation. Moved by councillor Berge, seconded by councillor Lamb. Is there any discussion? Put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. That brings us to item 10.12, defibrillators and CPR training. Councillor Welsh.
I support the recommendation with
So
a number.
you move it?
Oh, I move it, sorry.
Yeah.
I move the recommendation with an addition of a number 2 and a number 3, which I handed in.
Okay, that's coming up. Yep.
I'll read it out. Okay, number 3, the council organized the running of CPR classes for the community, offering free room hire to the Red Cross and or St. John Ambulance, and that the Red Cross and or St. John Ambulance may charge the usual fee to the community for the classes. And number 4, that North Sydney Council run a campaign, including but not limited to social media, council website and precincts, to encourage the community to learn or update their CPR skills by attending the classes run by the Red Cross and or St. John Ambulance.
Is it seconded by councillor Berge? You speak to your item?
Thank you. Okay, just in background to this, in January, I encountered a situation in a secluded parking lot where a man required CPR. Despite 5 bystanders offering help, none of them knew how to perform CPR. This incident highlighted the urgent need for our community to learn CPR, as one never knows when this life-saving skill may be needed for a loved one. At the February 12th council meeting, it was resolved that North Sydney Council run a campaign to encourage the community to learn or update their CPR skills. Number 2, the council helps support the running of CPR classes through through local community centers or other sites. And 3, the council look at the feasibility and cost in a further report of having defibrillators in our public spaces such as parks and sporting fields, and providing CPR training to interested councillors and staff. If the elected body supports today's recommendation, I am pleased to note that CPR training for staff will be considered as part of council's learning and development and work health and safety programs, which is really terrific. Okay, CPR training for councillors will be included within the councillor professional development program for interested councillors and discussed as part of the induction process in the new term. Council has undertaken a program of work to install defibrillators throughout council buildings. Now, I want to go through this list just because I want to know in the public, because a lot of people are not going to know where these defibrillators are. And it might, if you're in that situation, you might go, oh yeah, maybe they've got a defibrillator. So the defibrillators are installed at the following locations. So Council Chambers has 2. North Sydney Oval Function Centre has 2. St. Leonard's Depot has 1. Council Depot in Cambrai has 2. Stanton Library has 1. The Co-Loader has 2. And Community Recycling Centre has 1. Now, the following sites have been identified as active recreation reserves without a public access defibrillator. And if the elected body resolves to accept the recommendation, these parks will have defibrillators. Anderson, Primrose, Camaret Park, Forsyth Park, St. Leonard's Park, and Waverton. I firmly believe that making CPR training easily accessible will encourage more people in our community to acquire this essential skill. Defibrillators are able to restore a heart to a normal sinus rhythm, which is life-saving. I've included the additions to the recommendation so that my intentions for my original notice of motion are made very clear. Please support the recommendation.
Councillor Berge.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillor Welsh. More than happy to second and support. I just have a question to our Open Space Director, acting CEO. The Northern Beaches Council partnered with Heart of the Nation, which is the group set up by the Yellow Wiggle, Greg Page, who had a, that's both hands. Who had a heart attack whilst on stage and was revived. I think many people would remember it. And he has then been out there actively encouraging both what Councillor Welsh is saying, everyone learn CPR and having defibrillators available where large groups of people are when these things are likely to happen. And what he has done with Northern Beaches Council is that they work together in a collaboration to have defibrillators at all the Beeline bus stops, because they are major terminals where people are all the time. And I think this is a marvellous commitment, and just one that perhaps we should look to pursue. We don't already have any defibrillators at bus stops here, do we? So, Councillor Walsh, I was wondering if you would take on to your motion that council investigate a collaboration with Heart of the Nation, similar to that being used by the Northern Beaches Council, to install defibrillators at each of our major bus stops, which not just includes the Beeline, but I would just say our major bus stops. Some of them are the Beeline, but some of them are then on the Pacific Highway, Crow's Nest, St Leonard's, down at Milson's Point, and Hammeray, Cremorne, all of those places where we know large groups of people are constantly, and whether then we can expand the program, because it seems like a wonderful, obviously totally supportive, but the thing with defibrillators is that they've got to be where the person is when the event happens, and therefore somewhere like major transport hubs, not just, and I know train stations have them, but it's more, buses are just as, well, buses are our trains really coming along Military Road. So if you'd be happy to take that on, that would be great, and I support the motion. That's going to be you take that on?
I'll take it on.
Councillor Gibson, did you want to speak?
Yes, could I suggest, I agree with that last comment by Councillor Bergy, but shouldn't Transport for New South Wales pay for defibrillators to be installed in the Beeline bus stops, not council? Surely this is not a matter for council to have to pay. Could we consider that would Councillor Bergy take on board that we amend that and request that Transport for New South Wales actually carry the cost?
Councillor Gibson, with Councillor Welsh's approval, I'm happy to say, look at partnering with Heart of the Nation and any other funding opportunities that may be available to deliver them at bus stations and other transport hubs.
Yes, okay, thank you. I'll support it with that amendment.
Are there any other speakers? Do you wish to exercise the right of reply?
I'm good.
Thank you. I'll put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. That brings us to 10.13, North Sydney Oval Venue Hire Agreement. Is there
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Bergy, seconded by Councillor Gibson. Is there any discussion? Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this proposal should be encouraged, not just on this occasion, but on others as well. I come originally from the state of Victoria, so Australian rules football is really the game that's played in heaven. And I'm delighted that the Sydney Swans, and I'm sure my colleague Councillor Burke would be here. Thank very much. But I don't want to put words into your mouth. So I think this is an excellent recommendation, and I support it. Hope that it's repeated.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? That's carried. 10.14, North Sydney Victoria Development Project Update. Moved by Councillor Bergy, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Any discussion?
Yes,
Sorry, Mayor, if I could make an amendment, I'd like to propose an amendment if I could.
Yes, what is your amendment?
That council create a dedicated website to promote and update the community regularly on the status of the pool for both completion date and cost, and that this link to the website be promoted by social media and via a prominent link on the front of the North Sydney webpage, North Sydney Council webpage.
So are you suggesting a second dedicated website to the pool or promotion via council's own existing website and social media?
Yes, by council's own
So,
existing
so
website and
perhaps
social media.
A communication strategy to continually update the community on progress?
Correct. Yeah, and if we could
Yeah.
maybe just include there that updates be provided and noted on the communications, media every 2 weeks. So even if there's no update, at least we update that there's no update every 2 weeks. Yeah, thank you.
As mover, happy to take that on.
Sorry, just taking on a communication strategy to update the community fortnightly.
Fortnightly via council's
Via
existing
web
webpage and community
social.
and social media.
Yep. That the mover and the seconder have taken that on. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to the item? No. Okay, councillor Gibson.
Yeah, look, I can't possibly vote for this. Again, I was out and about in Kirribilli today, and the amount of people that said to me, what is going on with the pool? When is it ever going to be finished? And how does the cost keep on rising? I can look here, we're being asked again for another 1.5 mil. Every time a report comes to council, we're asking for more money. I must say, during the chaotic last council, Mayor, we actually kept the pool project on time and on budget. At the end of the, I haven't finished my sentence. At the end of the last meeting, at the end of the last meeting, at the last council.
Councillor Gibson, you can argue all you like, it's untrue, but I know you won't withdraw and apologise. If you
No, I
stick
won't,
to your
because
point,
I'm
stick
I
to
am
your point
sticking
on
my
this
point.
item.
At the
please.
last meeting of the last council, the pool was on time and it was only $200,000 over budget.
It is just not true,
That
and I
is
won't
true.
have you.
Are you saying
It-
the
I
report to
can
council
say-
was untrue?
Yeah, it was, because we've subsequently had an
I-
independent review
yeah.
that showed
Oh,
it to be untrue.
That is not true.
It
So
is
we had an investigation by a company that's now been totally
Okay,
discredited.
I want you
Totally
to, I want you to be
discredited.
really careful here, because
am
as you
being
well
careful.
know, you are
People
open
have
to
been-
you
they
are
have
open
been
to
discredited.
defamation.
Well, that's
And you have
fine.
been-
Go for it, Mayor. Go for it, Mayor.
I'm not
The
threatening
company
you,
that-
I'm suggesting to you,
This
councillor
company
Gibson,
has
that
been
you be careful.
discredited in the
Again,
media.
councillor Gibson, I'm calling you
Well,
to order.
I'm saying
calling you to order, and if you are unable to refrain from making defamatory
I'm not
statements, I'll
making
have to
defamatory-
ask
I
you
am
to
just,
take a
okay,
seat
well,
and refrain.
I worded a different way. When I pick up the Sydney Morning Herald, as I did a few weeks ago, there was a very big article about PwC and the investigations that they're undergoing and how many people have lost their jobs. And, to me, the word discredited comes to mind, but I can think of another word. Mayor. But it's absolutely true that at the end of the last council, it might have been it was on time and on budget. You cannot.
You can keep repeating a lie as often as you like.
It's
We know
not-
that Goebbels.
It's not a
took
lie,
that as
and
a-
Mayor,
as a-
how dare you impugn me?
I
How dare you impugn me?
withdraw and apologise, but I am once
You
again
cannot
calling
say
you
I
to
am
order.
telling a lie. I am going by a council report that was
Councillor
presented
Gibson,
to
would
this
you
council.
keep to the item that is before us?
That's
this
what
evening?
I am talking about the North Sydney Pool and it's interesting that since we haven't had a full-time mayor, this project just goes further and further behind.
Again,
And
a type one, I'm going to call
cost.
you order on that, because this seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding that you had for 10 years of the role of the mayor. The mayor is not the chief executive of the organisation, nor should the mayor be
And the
involved
mayor is-
in the management of projects.
Well, what does the mayor do then?
Oh,
The
if
mayor,
one has to explain it.
the mayor hires and fires the general manager.
Again,
As soon
that
as
is
our
not,
general
that is
manager
not true.
left,
Again,
as soon as-
Councillor
as
Gibson,
soon
Councillor Gibson, I'm seriously calling you to order, and the reason I'm doing so is you, like the rest
I'm
of this
talking
council,
about-
are under a deed.
Absolutely, and I'm not
You
going to,
have
and
an
I am not going
obligation
to, and I am
to
not going
abide
to,
by.
and I'm not breaking that deed.
You
I'm
are.
simply stating that Mr. Ken Goulthorpe was hired for his expertise in delivering public infrastructure.
Well, again, I'm
And
calling
the
you to order.
moment
That's
that
a- No,
he
no, he
left-
wasn't.
The moment
That is
that
again
he-
untrue.
You.
Untrue, and I'm calling you to
Oh,
order.
Mayor,
on it.
you know what happened in the last council, don't you? Yes, Mayor, yes, Mayor. And what I would say, that's the minute things started going wrong. And our community now has, is still waiting for this vital piece of infrastructure to be delivered. Maybe if we had a full-time mayor, we would be keeping this project, on track. And you know, you can sit there and give out all the insults you want, councillor Baker, but at the last council elections, I actually received more votes from the public than you.
By a handful.
So, but it doesn't matter, by
In
a
any
handful,
event,
I received more votes than you, so,
Councillor Gibson, it
you
is
know,
not.
just keep your insults, to yourself.
Councillor Gibson, again, thank you. Could you turn off your
I
microphone?
will be voting against this
That's
and,
very clear if you turn off your microphone. Are there any other speakers to the item? I put the item, all
Yes, ma'am.
those.
Oh, Mayor, I'd like to
Thank you,
speak if I could,
councillor
Mayor.
Spenceley. Yes.
Just a short note, Mayor, and I think this comes from the point that Councillor Gibson made at the very beginning, which is that there is a lot of questions around the swimming pool. Primarily, I think if we do a better job, and this was the point of my amendment, if we do a better job of communicating when and how much, and providing the community with the raw details, I think that goes a long way to fulfill what the hole that is not the hole that is the swimming pool, but the hole that is in with the communications around the pool. Bad news is bad news, but the only thing that is worse than bad news is no news. So I really encourage council's communications team, and with that amendment, to provide very easily found information, both on budget and time. And good luck to getting the pool open as soon as possible.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I put the item, all those in favour? Those against? That is carried. That brings us to the close of the meeting. Thank you for all for your participation and time.